Thanks, Mr. Fry, faculty, parents, students, friends. It's a great privilege for me to be here with you.
This is up now. I reloaded this capture
the English
device.
King Henry VIII said to all of his 6 wives, I won't keep you very long. Ask your teachers about that one. With that long litany of things, if I talked about everything I did, we'd be here all day. I'm sure you don't mind that, but I think your teachers would. So I'm going to just talk about what it was like to be a B-52 crewman. We started out with training. In training, we learned about physiology, about what happens to the human body in flight. We learned about weather, because when you're in an aircraft in the air, weather is very important to you. We had to learn about thunderstorms because they affect us. We learned about the wind because the wind has a great effect on aircraft. We also learned how to do time, distance, and speed calculations. And the faster you can do those, the better you are. So we had to learn to do those in our head. A lot of multiplication and division in our head. We learned about maps and charts and how to use them. We learned about celestial navigation, which is navigating by measuring where you are with the stars. We learned about radar navigation, which is using the aircraft radar to pinpoint your position. We learned about parachuting, because if something went wrong with the aircraft and you had to leave the aircraft, you had to use a parachute. And of course, we learned about the weapons that we carried. When I was in training, it was during the height of the Cold War. Our great adversary was the Soviet Union, and our training revolved around nuclear weapons. So we had to learn about the effects of nuclear weapons and what they did, basically, when you dropped them. We learned about equipment operation, how to use the equipment in the aircraft. We had to learn the function of every piece of equipment, every switch, every knob, every dial. We learned about the compass, the radar, the section, the altimeter, which tells you how high you are, the airspeed indicators, all the computers on the aircraft, the bombing equipment, and the missile launch equipment. Once all that training was done, we go to our operational bases. As a navigator, I was responsible for planning the missions. I was also responsible for, in flight, making sure that we stayed on course and on time. We had to fly thousands of miles and get to our destination within 10 seconds of our planned time. As a radar navigator, I was responsible for weapons delivery. The accuracy of the weapons was on me. I had to have the weapons within 200 feet of their planned target. Something for you all is how school helped me. So a lot of times you're thinking, how am I ever going to use this stuff that I'm learning in school? Well, I use a lot of things that you haven't been exposed to yet, but I also use a lot of things that you are learning right now. I use math a lot. I talked about the time, distance, and speed calculations. Also measuring angles. A lot of navigations, measuring angles. I used science, not only with the weather, but also the physics of the radar and aerodynamics of the aircraft. All military officers are expected to know their history. So I used what I learned in history class. All military officers are expected to be good communicators. So my ELA classes came in handy for that. And believe it or not, art came in handy because I was expected to draw a prediction of what I would see on the radar scope. Being a B-52 crew member was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work, but it was also a lot of fun. We had a great time, but also we gave up a lot. Every month we would go on what was called alert, where we would be away from our families for a week. We would live out near the aircraft. The aircraft were all loaded with fuel and weapons, ready to go at a moment's notice. We would have to be off the ground within 10 minutes of being told to take off. The families also do a lot of sacrifice. As you heard from my record, we did a lot of moving. And that meant that my children had to leave their friends and go to a new place, a new school, try to make new friends, learn new teachers, and often the school that they went to wasn't at the same place in its teaching as the school that they left. So they had to make that adjustment as well. As far as being a veteran goes, I look back on it and I see that I'm living the values that I learned in the military. The Air Force has three main values. Integrity first. Integrity means, to me, you're doing the right thing all the time, whether somebody's looking at you or not. Secondly is service before self, which is why I'm here with you, because I like to serve. And finally, excellence in all we do. Whenever you try to do something, try to do it the best that you know how. Being in the military, I was part of something bigger than a single person. I still am. In the military, we looked out for each other. As veterans, we look out for each other as well. And for me, I know what kind of country we have. I've seen our country. I've been in every state of our country, with the exception of Alaska. But I've seen pretty much everything that this country has to offer. I know what kind of a great country we have. So to me, being a veteran means I value the country, I value its people, and most of all, I value its future. And that's all I wanted to talk to you about today. Thank you very much.
All right, 8th graders, can we get one more round of applause for Mr. Patrick? All right, so that concludes what we have today. You're going to head back with your teachers to your first period class, and thank you for your attention. You guys were a great audience. You're very respectful. Thank you for that, and have a great rest of your day, and enjoy celebrating Veterans Day. Thank you.